Good evening, members. My name is Nonku Mahule. I am the Provincial Secretary serving on the Profcom of the Black Management Forum in the Free State. With me, I'm joined by Mamello, who's assisting us. She's our Provincial Manager. And we're also joined by Mr. Musibetsi Adladla, who is our Chairperson. Our esteemed guest this evening is Nick Efstafio, and he'll be speaking to us as part of our Leading CEOs program. As you know, we've been holding these sessions over time with leading CEOs, where we applaud the success of the CEO and the companies that they lead. We ask them to also share their unfiltered insights and immense experience to help BMF managers. We ask them, how do they architect their own personal success throughout their careers? How do they elevate relationships between CEOs, the boards that they sit in, and how do they lead their teams? And then we ask them what supports their strategic agendas and that led them to be such leading CEOs in times, especially now, of disruption and transformation. To help us to navigate these and to get insights and to learn what a day-to-day life of a CEO is, we're joined by Nick Efstafio. Nick is the CEO of Central Media Group. They call it CMG. And it's a media business based in the Free State with an interest in OFM, which is Central South Africa's largest commercial radio station. They also have Mahareng Media and Advertising, which they publish the Bloemfontein Courant and the Bloemfontein Get It magazine. Plus, they have a digital platform. It's a digital solutions business. I've met Nick, and Nick is very much pro empowerment, pro development. He's got an interesting story to share with us tonight on his own career. Nick is also empowered with the principles and practices of strategic management and company development. Nick is also an award-winning media professional. And although he sits at CMG, he's got many roles and many other boards that he sits on. So I'm very pleased that you were able to get Nick on with us, and also that he's a sponsor and a supporter of BMF. So yeah, we'll be chatting to Nick shortly. So just to go through the whole protocol, Mamello is assisting us. The chat group is open, and also by a show of hands if there's any questions. Nick, yeah, over to you. If you can introduce yourself to our members.
Thank you very much. That's a very long CV, must be honest. Yeah, that's very nice. Thank you very much. So Nick Efstafio, Chief Executive Officer of the Central Media Group here based in Bloemfontein, but our business dealings across 3 segments, as mentioned, in broadcasting with OFM, in print with Mahareng Publishing, and then new media with digital platforms. Essentially, my role at the Central Media Group is to create and provide strategic input to develop and execute the company's business strategy with the cooperation of our board and our holding company, Africa Media Entertainment, which is a JSE-listed media business. Central Media Group is a level 4 BBBEE company currently. I've been the CEO since, when was it, March 2019. Other roles that I've had at the Central Media Group over the last 21 years include being the executive director of an events business called Red Star, also owned by CMG. Group marketing manager at the Central Media Group for a few years as well. I was the marketing manager of OFM. I've been a presenter, a freelance presenter, sports presenter, not a very good one, and a promotions and events coordinator. So my journey at CMG has been quite amazing, and I've been very blessed. My education, I got an MBA from the Northwest University in 2020. I've also studied postgraduate diplomas at the Northwest University. I've gone to Gordon Institute of Business Science, Pearson Education Limited, attended and many other training at CTU. Also studied at Wits University at the business school for a year. Obtained a management development program certificate at the University of the Free State. Also studied at Socio-Economic Media Leadership Institute. And I played golf. So I don't know if that's important. But yeah, that's pretty much me. The other boards that I'm on the board of Childline Free State. I'm on the board of Northern Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and on the board of Free State Goldfields Chamber of Commerce and Industry as well. I take those responsibilities quite seriously. and I am a member of the Advisory Council at the University of the Free State, the Department of Communication Science. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of me. And thank you for having me.
No, you're very welcome, and it sounds like you're very busy, so we will ask you later how do you navigate the time. I would also like to recognize the power behind you, Nick. Zoe has joined us. So good evening, Joey, and thank you for making him available for us. I know he's missing critical time with your baby. And
that's my sister.
Oh, it's just a sister. Okay.
That's
Hello,
my sister,
hi.
yeah.
I thought it was your wife. Hi, Zoe, welcome. Also, and Tate Mutse, who serves on the board of the BMF, and it's a big supporter of the Free State, and we support him as well. So thank you for joining us. Our deputy chairperson is also on here. Our members who are always loyal to us and grow within the BMF. Thank you, Ntate Kazula, all of you. Mevila Gazi sits on the board as well. She's chairperson of the Gauteng BMF, and she does a brilliant job. And actually, we would love for you, Nick, to get in touch together with some of our board members and on the stuff that you do.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I mean, it's good dialogue to have, and it's a good narrative. I mean, for all businesses to be able to engage in an organized, constructive way with the same objectives leading forward.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Then I'll hand over to my provincial chair, Ntate Msebetsi. If you can just take us through our topic for this evening.
Yes, thank you very much, Menonku. I realize Nick is quite different from us. You see, Nick, when we have this CEO series, we tend to allow people to tell us where they are from. I realize your surname is Greek. I thought you'd tell us a bit about your family life.
Yeah, I was born in 1977 in Port Elizabeth to a South African mother and a Cypriot father. I'm one of 4 kids. I've got a child that's 6 years old as well. My father's gone back to Cyprus a few years ago to retire. Yeah, it's a Cypriot blood inside me, which means one of 2 things: no patience, and we work very hard.
I think, Nick, for most people, it will be an amazing, because we are BMF. The assumption has always been we only work with Black people. And I think quite a fascinating story with you is that we've had a relationship for quite some years now between the BMF and Central Media. How have you looked at that relationship personally yourself, even when you became the CEO?
Look, the perception that the Black Management Forum is a Black organization is incorrect. The direction that the BMF is going to progress and be the leaders in transforming the economy of South Africa is real. But that transformation doesn't sit in one space. It sits with a lot of people that need to be around the table with like-minded thinking to be able to drive that agenda. So when I first engaged with you, I was very taken aback by my own perception of what the BMF was and what great stuff we can do with the BMF from a skills development perspective, access to skilled individuals that we could possibly employ across our businesses, and then the kind of partnerships with something like this to change the narrative and the understanding of what the organizations are, and then share ideas of how we can transform going forward.
Yeah. But I think that could be very much risky. You know, I'm speaking in light, we saw the Discam debacle, and Central Media is a media business. It was quite interesting. We saw 2 letters, one that came first and one that came from the board. What would be your understanding around that? The 2 letters.
Look, from a personal perspective, you know, I can't speak on behalf of Discam and their business decisions. I think that the manner in which they were trying to apply a transformation charter of some kind into their business could have been done in a different way, because people are often offended by you know, policies that are so misunderstood, if I can put it that way. I don't think they communicated properly to their staff to understand the seriousness of and the nature of why they want to transform.
Yes, Why I'm asking this, I think it sits similar with your organization. You level 4, you've engaged with the BMF. We've done a number of things, and we committed to a number of things in our relationship. One was to look at your management control, your skills development contribution, your ownership. We were looking at aspects such as your enterprise and supplier development and socio-economic. What made it easier for you to begin to say, let me engage on this? I think that's the question, because it's not like people are not willing, but what made it easier to say, let me have these conversations about these things as a CEO of this organization?
Look, what made it easier is for us to understand that it spoke to our strategy. So our strategy in employment equity is that our promise to the Department of Labor on certain positions within the business is a commitment, and it's a commitment to transformation. And the thinking within the organization has also changed quite a bit since I became CEO. And what's characteristically about the transformation kind of thinking within this organization is new thinking, totally new thinking, engaging in a sense that we want to broaden the mindsets of many of our staff. We are very much committed to active listening to be able to develop our staff members. We will take risks, intelligent risks, which is important for the business. We take responsibility for what we do. We have a lot of trust in our team members to make the right decisions. And what we're trying to do is a mentorship program that we can upskill our staff to be able to step up into the next part of their careers.
Yes. I think for me, then it links to what the founder of BMF, Babu Eric Mafuna, one of the founders, talked about, to say cathedral thinking. In your thinking, the strategy that you have with your board, is it for a long term? Is it to build a different organization? This is an organization that equally broadcasts in Afrikaans. I think that's also what is interesting to this, to say, as it shows in your composition of management control and the decisions you are making, how do you begin to think it will begin to shape how you send the message out there to the communities, especially to the listeners out there? Because I think, as you rightfully said, some of the information on transformation is quite misunderstood. How do we use the media, in essence, to try and get that across?
Well, let me answer your first question. So we've got 3 businesses. We've got radio, we've got print, and we've got digital. Print and digital are not regulated. The radio station is regulated by ICASA. So the terms of engagement and how we do business is pretty much set. The rules are set by ICASA. So in our license, it says that 30% control needs to be within the region. We need to, for argument's sake, spend 1.8 million rand a year on news provision. We sit in a space where the ownership it's challenging because we are majority owned by a JSE listed business. So when we get asked who are our actual owners, we have to do a VACO report to try and report that, because we are the only listed media business, radio media business in the country at the moment. So that does come with challenges because you're trading shares on a stock exchange. With regards to the language we speak, that's in our license. We've got a 10-year license that is dictated by ICASA that have said you have to speak English and Afrikaans, because ICASA's role is to be able to provide regulated media, and it's regulated since the apartheid era, to ensure that we're providing content for all South Africans. And that's where we sit. We are based in Bloemfontein purely by history and geography, but we do cover 4 provinces, the Northwest, the Northern Cape, the Free State as well, and then of course Southern Gauteng. So a lot of those challenges for a transformation comes through what sits in our license. But we have committed to upskill many people within the broadcast space through changing some of the stuff in our license. So that would be, we are due to train community broadcasters 100 hours a year. We do 250 hours a year. Our control of 30% is not 30%. It's 36, I wrote it down here, 36.65%. The news provision of 1.8 million is actually 2.7 million. And what we're doing is uplifting communities. The second part of your question about how do we use media. Media should be educating. We should be having these hard conversations. And we do have these hard conversations. We've got a show on OFM Monday to Friday between 6 p.m. and 7 p.m. where what we do is, it's called the business hour. And often we have these hard conversations with leaders in industry to understand what are they doing in that space.
Excellent. I think for me, what's important is actually where we're at. As BMF, we've been able to champion the JSE to equally put transformation in that. I think that's why the discount issue came up as well, to say we are going to be fined 10% by the JSE if we don't meet our transformation targets. So I think looking at your ownership from a JSE listed company, it's something that's still to come. But as you put it, you're already at 36%. So the aspect would be how do you do it incrementally? My question is, how did you go about convincing your team as the leader of the strategy execution that we need to do this? I think that's of interest.
So our commitment to the Department of Labor led the conversation. The equity promise to the Department of Labor speaks, again, I'm repeating myself, speaks to our strategy, but it all goes up and up and up, what we call the big, hairy, audacious goal, where part of that is our HR, the skills development within our team, the right people with the right jobs, with the right skills, and understanding that this business has committed to transformation, and we've got the majority of the leadership on board, but I will be the first to say some still need a little bit more education, and that's my job to do.
Yes. But how did you move this? You know, I'm looking at your targets. You're exceeding the targets on spend on certain things like podcast hours based on your ICASA license, training of local radio stations. Normally, someone would just do the bare minimum. We've seen it a lot with transformation where people just simply says, we're doing the bare minimum. Why is it different? Because it costs you more. Transformation, we always say, it costs money. You are skilling probably a huge population that was not given these opportunities. It's going to cost everyone money. How did you motivate for that?
No, we motivated it on a boardroom level, and there's a commitment from the board. We're committed to do it. We understand that if we don't transform, this business may die. So we need to understand the long-term view that without transformation, we're going to sit in a space where a business will suffer, people will lose jobs, our investments will become smaller. Our investment into our building here, 50 million rand 7 years ago, it's not something that you can take lightly. So it is a commitment.
But you need to tell me now, Nick, on this front, to say, over the years, in terms of listenership, do you think you've broadened to other demographics that in the olden days of apartheid you might not have had? What has it done to your business as well?
What's happened with OFM now? If I have to go back to 1996 when Radio Oranje was first born out of the SABC. That was 1986. In 1996, the then Radio Oranje was sold. All commercial radio broadcasters were sold out of the SABC, and we were bought up by AME, as well as we've got a minority shareholder, Kagiso Media, who owned Jacaranda FM East Coast as well. During that period, if you had to look at our numbers, we were probably sitting at 90% white listenership because we spoke 100% Afrikaans. But over that period, when we were renewing our licenses, because it's a 10-year gap every time, we started asking for change in the licenses because we were committed to, we were very much aware of what's going on in the country and around us. At the moment, OFM has got a 31% black audience, 25% colored audience, and 44% white audience. So the audiences have changed. We hear it, and with that change in consumption from an audience perspective, we've also changed the representation of staff on air. So we've got 19 presenters, of which I think of mine 12 or 11 are of color.
Yes. I think what's then important for me is, and this is what goes back to decisions that CEOs must do. Why we say this is because BMF members tend to also become CEOs of organizations that probably would not have been transformed, would have sat with your situation in 96. What lesson would you have to say, personally, at the personal level, this is how you begin to take the bull? Or how did you navigate that? Whether you're an executive, whether you're a CEO.
Yeah, so look, I took over as CEO 4 years ago. The previous CEO to me was in charge 11 years, and the previous CEO to him was 6 years. There was a commitment by the board, as I understand, in the 2000s to start transforming the whole organization again. I'm repeating myself because we saw what was happening around us. You need to have the right people on your team committed to what it is that we commit to the board and also to ourselves and our people to be able to transform the organization, to keep the organization healthy. Because the reality is I might be the CEO of this organization right now, but I'm babysitting this position until somebody else comes in.
Yes. I think we're going to get to the last part of it, the socio-economic part. We know there's always a prescription of 1% that you need to do in terms of socio-economic transformation from the scorecards, BE scorecards. How do you guys fare with that? Do you do structured programs? What's happening there? How do we assist you as BMF?
Well, look, the structure that we have got is that we commit a certain amount of radio airtime to up to 10 businesses every year, where we train these businesses, Black-owned businesses, how to use media to advertise to build their business. That's one thing. The second thing is in the community broadcasting space, our commitment there is to upskill and be able to employ some really good radio people in the future. That's very important to us as well. We do the same in our print space, and we do the same in our digital space. We have got a lot of internships that exist across the entire organization. Currently, we've got about 10 interns across the 3 organizations. We have been able to, over the last 4 years, employ up to 4 interns across the organization with the skill sets that we were very happy with. So these are the things that we're doing in the background.
But tell me now, Nick, your organizational composition. I don't want my members to say, how big is this organization that Nick is running?
We've got 81 full staff members, and then we've got the presenters that are on contract. At the moment, if I have to look at last year to this year, we've gone from 37% Black staff members to 41.
Okay. So it means there's a lot of change that has happened to this organization. I think we're quite excited. Menonku, I'm not sure if you're going to come in. The interesting thing with the conversation with Nick is a bit more straightforward. He has the numbers. I'm not sure our audience, I see the numbers have really quite picked up. And the important thing for me is equally to allow our audience to interact, look at the numbers, discuss the strategy, and maybe want to learn a few things personally from Nick, because I think this is an opportunity that not many people get to meet one-on-one and get the answers from a CEO of the caliber of Nick.
Definitely, and we do have a few questions, Chair. And yeah, I'll go through it. Lily said, great CV, and so proud of you. You're truly an inspiration, Nick. And the first question is, since you sit on several boards, in your opinion, what are the major corporate governance challenges that directors in South Africa are faced with? So,
Lily, yeah, thank you for the question. I see it here, yes. Look, I think the major challenges that board members would have in the corporate governance space is, and I'm just going to be very honest, is the lack of understanding in the industry that you might be serving on that board. Not being able to voice your opinion, because as a non-executive board member or even executive board member, your job is to direct the CEO, the CTO, the CFO in a way that makes sense to the strategy. The other challenges that exist there is, to understand the cash flow of the business from a corporate governance perspective. Have we put in enough filters to ensure that we're not spending money where we should not? That we're looking after the people. For me, it's always about the people first, skill set second, and then the profits will come. So it comes down also, to a lot of education and understanding. Everybody wants to be a board member. It's a very difficult job to do, but you need to be in a space where you understand 100% the sector that you're representing. That, I think, is a big challenge from a corporate governance perspective.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we can go through those even more and just go through it. But I think I agree with you on the lack of understanding of what it takes to be a board and what's the huge responsibility that you're taking joining these boards. Yeah, the next one is in the BMF, we believe in the concept of lift as you rise. How do you personally lift others?
So our corporate social investment strategies within the Central Media Group is very much about a hand up and not a hand out. We've seen too much, and Mosabetsi actually taught me the saying, dumping in the corporate sector. We just dump money so you can get it on your scorecard and you move forward. And that's not very responsible. I find that ignorant. What we try and do is a hand up and not a hand out. Skills development, looking after people by raising funds, but then doing something ourselves with that money to be able to affect them directly. So essentially, to answer the question, it's a hand up, not a hand out.
Maybe Nick, if I could come in through that question, personally now, yourself outside the organization, what are you doing in terms of saying, I'll take 1 or 2 jockeys and over time I'll spend 5-6 years with them and get them ready for life beyond me. I think that Demafuna mentioned to say we need to build for at least 200 years. We need to start saying, who do we prepare for the next 20 years from now? So that we don't have the leadership crisis that we tend to have today as a country, or also in corporate. What are you doing at the personal level now to say, after so many years, with so many credentials behind my name, how do I prep the next set of guys that will do better than me?
So the way to answer it, I'm actually just taking out a document here. There's 2 things here. From a personal level, it's what we call training and development policy that's based within the organization and performance management. We, from a succession planning, I have already identified up to 3 people within the organization that I will personally mentor to bring them up into the organization, to understand the difficulty of this job, to understand the business even better, because the one key thing about this job is the understanding of finance. And I think that's the other corporate governance issue I should have mentioned. So what we've got here, and I'm just going to read off here, is a training and development opportunity for staff, which talks to programs relating to the enhancement of skills for an employee's current position and what we think can be their next one, leading to professional or academic qualification. Training is very important. Mentorship and coaching is the main thing. What we're currently doing is putting in a mentorship program across the organization where we've identified staff members we truly believe are the next generation, and they will be mentored silently without, it sounds a bit odd, but without their knowledge, so that when we get to a point where we need to push somebody into a new role, we believe they've already got the skill sets within the organization.
Thanks, Nick, for that. And are you able to retain talent? I know you are essentially based in South Africa, and it could be a challenge retaining and attracting talent. How do you do that?
We've got
Joburg, Cape Town thing.
Yeah, we've got so we've learned a few lessons from the pandemic. Talent acquisition from a radio presenter perspective has become a little bit easier because technology allows us to broadcast from anywhere. We don't necessarily have to have the top talent sitting in Bloemfontein at our studios here. Technology allows us to change that. The talent pool within the organization, we've got a very healthy, I don't want to make up a number, but it's over 50% staff complement that have been here for over 10 years. They enjoy working here, and their own careers have changed over time. What has become quite difficult, though, is the acquisition of younger talent into our organization and keeping them purely on the basis of economy. The ability to be able to pay salaries that match what Johannesburg, Durban, and Cape Town are offering is very, very difficult in this part of the country. The opportunities within this business, there are a few often, but we are a very flat organization. But talent acquisition, because there's a perception that the Free State is the middle of nowhere, is not a very attractive place to come and live. But through the pandemic, a lot of people left Johannesburg and have moved into these areas for a softer, how can I say, slower life. But the major thing is economies of scale. It's a salary acquisition in this space is very, very difficult.
But maybe, Nick, just to latch on what you've just said, is you've got a digital business that it forms part of your stable. have you seen growth within a province like the Free State, where a lot of young people are there? It's a very youthful province, and you'd assume a JSE listed company that brings such a business must have a boom. What do you think is a challenge, probably at the macro and micro level, for this aspect to really work? And we can see that talent coming up also in the Free State, the young talent.
So I can share with you some of the clients we've got in the digital space, so you can get the size, the scale. Okay, digital platforms is we'll probably close on about 10 million rand turnover this year. Okay, with a staff complement of about 12 people. The biggest challenge, and I'm sure I'm repeating myself, in the digital space development through the pandemic is a fewfold. Skills development, understanding coding. The second issue is because of the pandemic, we've actually lost developers to Google, to companies in Ireland, because you develop from your own home. So you didn't have to leave South Africa, and they're paying you in euros. So it always comes down to a salary environment. We've got some good local clients. David Motebe, as an example, we do his website for him. Tau Pele, Fetsas, Future Media, that's actually based in Namibia. With your car, that's in Ladybrand. Siteform, that's in Bloem. We're doing a rugby app for a client that's in Mossel Bay. We've just aggregated all 60 websites of Caxton's local news network into an application. We're doing an application for AME themselves. The CUT, we're doing some work for them, and we've done their website. So there's a lot of business here, and because we're local, we're more trusted.
But tell me now, I'm now thinking, as you say, young talent. Shouldn't we be looking at how do we use your expertise and find a mechanism to try and bring that talent and then be able to be a net exporter of digital skills? I'm looking at an area in your strategy where we could grow that, part of our partnership with you.
In 2018, 2019, we were in discussions with the University of the Free State as well as CUT. And then unfortunately, the pandemic came. What we are trying to look at doing is to upskill some of the development, how can I say, literature that currently exists across those two organizations, that we can find the best developers, bring them back into our organization, put them into a mentorship program, then eventually employ them.
I think that is excellent. That's what we look at, because that's also how we get the transformation dividend. We're looking at seeing how we can contribute, because as we say, poverty in South Africa tends to have a black face, maybe because Black people are majority, but also because of our history. So I think from us as BMF, this is something we would want to work with you on, assist, and see how best we can be able to do it. Because I'm thinking with such huge unemployment, we need to find ways of creatively developing those skills over time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, look, the reality is that the factors that stand in our way, the economic factors that stand in our way to accelerate transformation sits with interest rates, exchange rates, possible recession, social status, income, education levels, the physical environment, and also, understanding your social support network around you. So taking all those things into account, I firmly believe transformation is not one thing. It's these factors I've just mentioned now that we can pay attention to uplift.
Yes. Menonko, I'm not sure if we've got more questions from colleagues, but I think we should open the floor now for colleagues to come through. Maybe the board members that we have here.
Yes, it's a good suggestion, Shay. And I'm hoping to hear from CP. I know they Nick spoke a lot about young talent, and I'm sure CP has questions on that.
I see there's a question here.
Yes, I see. Can I read it out for you and for everybody else?
Yeah.
It's from Zoe. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate. FYI, for your information, I'm in workforce solutions and career management coaching. Her question is, what thought has been given to engaging the digital skills topic at school level? Which I'm also interested in that, Nick, because I wanted to know, how do we then create the skills, and what would you tell people to study now or focus on as young people or young entrepreneurs? I think it dovetails into that.
I think, yeah, there's two answers there. So there's a school here, Olive Ridge in Bloemfontein, that starts teaching kids development from early age. Understanding that going forward, you sit in a space that we need to be aware that digital development and the digital space is the future of most of what we do. We can see it now with the relaunch of F&B's logo. It wasn't just a relaunch of the logo, it's a relaunch of a positioning that it's all about online. So those skills are quite important, and those skills aren't taught by here's a tablet, go watch YouTube. No, the skills need to be a lot deeper. So I feel strongly that many schools should be relooking their curriculum, even the Department of Education, to bring on the development skills or even the better understanding of digital. Having said that, we sit in a space where, you know, if we can develop our kids early, it'll assist us with these economic factors to understand how we can better ourselves in social spaces and our income, and it'll better our education.
Thank you, Nick. I see the chairperson and fellow board member of the Gauteng province. You said you cover Southern Gauteng. I think it will be of interest for her because it means you are part of her area. Dr. Sibongile Vilakazi?
Oh, thanks, Chair. Sorry, I was trying to figure out how do I unmute. I'm using my phone. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Chair, and thank you so much for organizing this series. It's always nice for our members to be in touch with people who are where they aspire to be. We've got a lot of members in the BMF who see themselves as in the near future becoming CEOs and board members. It's a real aspiration for our members. And Nick, I'm just interested to hear from you. I mean, you've got a very impressive resume, which is a start, I guess, for someone who is looking to move towards that direction. What would you say are some of the tips that may not be in a book, like you wouldn't find in a book, on how you can progress your career to a point where you reach the levels that you want to reach? And I guess CEO is often the highest level people can reach in an organization. What would be some of those just nuggets that you can share with our members?
Thank you for the question. Look, to answer the question in a constructive way, I suppose, is you got to become an amoeba, to be honest. You have to consume everything around you all the time. You need to upskill yourself all the time. You need to be able to educate yourself all the time. Read as much as you can, ask as many questions as you can, understand what direction you want to take your career, and find a mentor. It's very important to find a mentor that you can speak to about anything, even if it's in your personal life. It's just to understand more of what's happening out there. And you know, the word I use a lot is don't be ignorant. We need to know what we don't know, and then when we find that out, we need to get the information.
Quite interesting, Nick, on that part, because I think Dr. Sibongile is on a thread to say quite often. Actually, I'm happy now to hear that Kagiso Media is a shareholder, because this CEO of Investec told us he was part of Kagiso Media. He was one of the founders there. So it's quite an interesting aspect of the session. It's a coincidence in a way. Mr. Fanny Titi, he was also with Kagiso Media before he joined Investec. What is of interest for me, what he mentioned at that time, was certain sets of skills on pragmatism and application that you must equally always apply yourself. Now, the important part is then, how then do you balance family life? You said you've got a 6-year-old. Now the question is it a trade-off? Did you do a trade-off for you to be able to get to be a CEO?
No, I don't think so. I think it's just the kind of support that you have around you. I think that's quite important. I mean, it doesn't matter what position you've got anywhere. If you've got the support around you in your family, then you should be easily successful.
But I want to know specifically on the trade-off. Do you have kids earlier? Do you have kids later? I think that's now a personal aspect. Remember, you just mentioned the interaction between the personal plus the professional life. and the mentorship? Because I tend to think a lot of women we found who are in the BMF, because of cultural aspects, they tended to have kids earlier, and that might have provided a dent in their careers. What do you think? How do you look at that aspect? You've got also probably some of your employees that you think they could make it, but they may be female, and there might be this aspect of, say, when do they plan their families? Do they delay it? Do they do it earlier? What do you think on that?
I really don't know how to answer that question, to be honest. I mean, for me, it was just a natural course of my life. I personally believe actually that if you want to have kids at any time. It shouldn't stop your career. I mean, we've got incredibly strong women in this organization that have got up to 3 kids, and they are massive leaders in big jobs. So it doesn't matter when they had their children, they still became successful.
Thank you, Nick. Our next question we have is Lebohang. He's asking, they're asking, are there any ESG programs that focuses on SMMEs in this space?
I'm unsure, to be honest. Yeah, early school, the development. I'm unsure. I don't have an answer to that. I have been party to many conversations where you look at the curriculum of what's happening in schools, and you're going, does some of the stuff even make sense anymore? As to the kind of skill sets you should have when you leave school and go into university, if you're lucky enough to be chosen. I'm of the opinion we don't. So, if you go to private schools, that's different. But in the public schools, I think they need to rethink.
But tell me now, Nick, I think on this aspect, maybe Lebohang wanted to cover the issue of enterprise and supplier development programs with your organization. How much of your value chain is within your organization or is outsourced? And is there many opportunities for Black SMMEs in that space, in your value chain? Do you do a lot of insourcing, or there are aspects that you outsource? And what would be those opportunities for supplier? I think you've clarified the enterprise part, what you do to companies in your space, but the suppliers that you work with in your value chain.
Suppliers we work with, again, in a regulated environment, we've got Centec, that is the supplier that does our transmission. ICAS is our supplier because they give us our license. The other suppliers that we've got it's an outsourcing, cleaning materials, and that we outsource that to Black companies. We outsource, the purchasing of I can say corporate wear, corporate gear to Black companies as well. So the majority of that does go to Black companies.
Yes. What other aspects in your value chain? Is it an organization that focuses everything internally? Because I think that's what we want to know, to say, if you were to decide to have a strategy that allows more people to come in, your logistics engineering probably, but you just mentioned Centec, to say probably a bulk of your revenue goes to Centec and ICASA, I'm not sure, besides your staff cost. What does it look like in your business?
Centec costs us 8 million Rand a year because we've got 20 transmitters. We are the second biggest client they've got next to the SABC. We do most of what we do internally. Sorry, Mosabeti, you were breaking up, so I hope I heard the question properly. We've got a large staff complement that are able to do what's required of this business. I'm answering your question.
Yes. No, I think you've covered me, because I think that's also what's important, because sometimes when we look at businesses, we assume there's a lot of outsourcing that must happen. Sometimes there's a lot of insourcing, meaning opportunities are mostly through management control and employment equity. I'm not sure if you could still hear me.
I missed that last part.
I'm saying your organization, from what you are saying to us, a lot of aspects are internally done, except those that you are forced to have to outsource, which is regulated by government, Centec and ICASA, but majority of the capabilities within the organization.
Yeah, look, the majority of the capabilities of the organization sit with the responsibility of the staff members. The certain outsourcing that we do is purely based on the fact that we can't do those jobs. Those expertise don't sit in our organization.
No, I'm covered. I'm covered on that. I think the question that Lebang wanted to cover was that, is to say, is there certain opportunities that are there that they could be able to look at central media?
So we've got yes, there are opportunities. We've got a license from ICASA called an IECNS license. It allows us to distribute our own signal. It's a piece of paper that allows us to distribute. But the thing though is, for us to go do 20 transmitters, it'll cost us nearly 400 million rand. But the opportunity exists for another business to be able to get that technology up and running, to be able to invest in that hardware and then use our license on our behalf to be able to distribute our signal. But we're very far away from that currently.
Oh, no, I think that's quite interesting, because I do have some of the board members of the Black Management Forum investment company. Because I think when you come of that type of investment, it's something that could be looked at to say there is an opportunity in this space and maybe it could be looked at. But thank you very much, Nick.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we lost Sipa. Are you still on the line? You wanted to ask a question? Yeah, Sipa, you can go ahead. Mamadou, if you can help us with unmuting Sipa.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nonku and the BMF and Nick. I think the question I wanted to ask has been covered. It's that one of the enterprise development as well. But at the same time, I'm very happy that we've had this opportunity to sit and listen, insights from Nick. And it is very nice to get to hear from him what is it that he actually does, because honestly, I would say that the most that I've heard about Nick, I've had very fond viewpoints about him, of some of our members or colleagues who have moved from, I would say, from junior employment to middle employment under his leadership. So I think, as far as things stand, he does do some of the things we stand for in the BMF, and I want to commend him for that. Thank you very much.
That's very kind. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Nick. It sounds like you're very genuine, and your employees are ringing your bell for you and holding your flag up high. So you've done a good job on leadership and bringing those that you lead with you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lily asked, in the BMF, we have a certain character trait that describes a BMF type of manager. From your experience, Nick, what are the most important leadership skills and traits that a CEO must have?
Patience, I'd say. Clear communication style, being concise in your communication, easy to understand language. I'd imagine collaboration and being open to having good discussions, and even being able to what I don't like to call it fighting, but more debate, and then come out with the right result. Being open-minded, being approachable, transparent, having a growth mindset, being very focused and disciplined on a strategy, and decisiveness. I mean, the hardest thing about this job, or any CEO's job, is making a decision that's not popular, and those are the decisions you have to make.
Well, Nick, I think for me, it's quite fascinating what you've shared, and I think I quite get to learn a lot from you today. I think maybe when we said, I spoke a lot from what we BMF does. I think at the CEO level, the aspect of the decisiveness, which we think from time to time doesn't happen. But what do you think makes that? I can see you're a decisive man, but maybe in hindsight, you sit with other CEOs and you meet them. What makes them not to make the decision? I
think it's yeah, let me tread lightly here. I think popularism is a problem.
Nick, this is again, our members must learn.
I think popularism is a problem. If you want to be at the top of a chain and you want to be popular, then you're in the wrong job. Essentially, who do we serve? We serve our people. I believe in servant leadership, and that's what you should be doing. Decisiveness, this comes out of experience, comes out of knowledge, and also decisiveness comes out of trusting the staff that you've employed to do their jobs. I firmly believe you must employ people around you that are a lot more cleverer than you. You don't employ people and then tell them what to do. They must tell us what to do. So that decisiveness essentially comes out of experience, where you've gone through something and you've learned out of an experience, and you know what to do next.
Thanks, Nick. You outlined, especially when answering Dr. Vilakazi on what traits are needed and education is important. What is the role of luck, would you say, in your journey?
Yeah, I've been blessed. I'm not going to say luck. I think there is luck in some aspects of what you do, but if you're going to rely on luck all the time, then that's the wrong thing to do. The luck comes out of years and years of failing, if I can put it that way. We believe here at the Central Media Group that you fail fast, you learn. If you failed and you haven't learned, you haven't failed properly.
Any stories to share on this amazing blessing or the luck from your journey that pops into mind?
Yeah. How can I say? I learned a lot from the previous CEO that was here for 11 years. I felt strongly that one day that should he step down, that it was my time to step up. And when you use the word luck, it's the wrong word, but the luck that I had in me being chosen by the board of the Central Media Group to take over this organization is because the board knew me. So I'm going to call that lucky, if that makes sense. Don't know if I haven't really answered the question.
So are you saying, Nick, you took 11 years to create your own luck with the board and with the CEO?
Yeah, I think so. I think it took 11 years. It could have been longer if the previous CEO didn't leave, but I mean, that would I had aspirations. I was happy to wait. So maybe that's the luck. The luck is that I decided I would wait until it was my time.
Okay. No, thank you enough, Nick. I think for my part, you've shared quite interesting insight. I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but what I enjoy with your session now, we had planned 90 minutes, and I see the members are not asking any more questions. It's short and concise, as you said. The biggest trick in leadership is being concise, and that clarity of thought to say, this is what I believe in, this is what it is. And I think that's the biggest takeaway for me from my discussion with you today. Say, always be concise.
I just want to add, Matsubetsi, conciseness, I can't say the word, and decisiveness also comes through the ability to have good conversations to then make a decision. You've got to have good people around you to make those decisions. They need to advise, and then you need to make a decision. That's the most important thing.
Thank you, Nick. I mean, I'm echoing what Chair had said, very concise and very much to the point. Thank you, Nick, for your insights. Mr. Thank you again for this session and making sure that we work even closer this year with Central Media. But Nick, yeah, it's always a pleasure and always lovely to hear your stories. We wish many more CEOs were more like you. And yeah, we hope at some point you'll also maybe join part of our leadership as a sponsor or something and just help us with young leaders. So we do run a program with Duke, and from time to time, they're looking for sponsors to assist young leaders in their management and leadership course. And I hope we could call on you.
Happy to have the conversation. Look forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, thank you very much.
Maybe Nick, as a parting shot,
yeah.
It's probably one of those that most members would want to know. What do you think BMF as an organization must look forward to? I know a lot of things we stand for, to say we'll develop managers. We do ask for employment equity because we believe transformation is quite important for this country, for it to move forward. We can't move forward if we leave people behind. But what would be your advice to an organization like BMF, to black managers that at some point begin to doubt? When wrong things happen, people start doubting to say, did we really make a good decision in saying we want to transform this country? Or what would be your advice to BMF as a whole in what we stand for?
I think the BMF needs to lead the narrative of transformation, but not just lead the narrative through voice, through education. to understand the importance of it and how your business can actually grow on the back of it, because again, it comes down to a lack of understanding and perception. So I think the BMF needs to lead that narrative, not political parties.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Close the session.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And yeah, as a closing, we've all learned a lot, and I don't want to add more and summarize. I think it was sufficient, Chair, and especially from you, Nick. So yes, I'll thank all the members who joined. And yeah, thank you for joining us. And Nick, thank you so much for your time. We would like to wish you a good evening further and a good time with your 6-year-old.
Thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.